the Madman!
Welcome to the March of the Lich King card reveal reviews. Now, as a note, I actually forgot to post up the review that I did for Druid and Mage earlier. This time around, we are also reviewing Druid and Mage, so it just happened to be good timing. So you're going to see all the Druid cards and all the Mage cards in this. First package from Druid. It is themed as, I'd say, the Aggro Undead package. We're going to start off with very sticky minion for 1 mana. Lingering Zombie. 1/1/1, 1/1, 1/1. It's a 1-mana 1/1 that summons a 1/1 disarm zombie with death rattle summon a 1/1 zombie. It's an undead also. That's really good if aggro token druid is ever a thing. And it's really good for zombie druid if that's ever a thing. We'll judge on whether or not zombie druid is going to be a thing after we take a look at these other cards. We've got Wither, 2 mana, nature spell. Choose a minion, each friendly undead steals 1 attack and health from it. Aggro token druid is a pretty strong deck. And that does use nature spells, and Wither is a nature spell. The question is, can you replace a few of those cards with zombos? And yeah, you've got the Lingering Zombie, that's pretty good. But I'm going to say, no, the undead cards that you could put into this deck might not actually beat the current cards in the deck. It might water down the deck too much. Secondly, I'm not even sure if Wither only counted friendly minions instead of friendly undead minions. That would be good enough. I guess there's a few multiple problems. One, it's not entirely proactive because it requires the opponent have a minion on the board, otherwise it's quite a lot worse. 2, it requires that you have a board of undead. And, you know, the token nature druid deck actually does have mini cards that do require that they have multiple minions on the board, so maybe if it didn't say undead, maybe it would be decent, but the undead factor, I think, is hurting this. We're going to have to see the other druid cards, but we do know the neutral undead cards, and on that replacing the current druid stuff. What about the other card? Elder Nadox. Is this a big draw to zombify your current token druid cards? 5 mana, 5/4 undead, battlecry, destroy a friendly undead. Your minions gain its attack. Answer, in my opinion, no. Again, the problem is that this has to be played in the undead deck. It's supposed to be like a big payoff for playing an undead deck, but both the payoffs of Wither and Elder Nadox, they seem meh. It's like, the payoff is you get to play a card that I'm not entirely sure would be that good if it didn't say the word undead. Also, destroying a friendly undead card, like, that's actually, you know, a pretty big drawback. And then we have Unending Swarm, which is put into the same bucket as the Lingering Zombie, Wither, and Elder Nadox, because I guess the idea is your undead guys are all going to be cheap, so you're going to use Unending Swarm to raise them back up. In fact, with Lingering Zombie, if you play Unending Swarm, which is resurrect all friendly minions that cost 2 or less, you're going to get Lingering Zombie originally, you're going to get Disarmed Zombie, and you're going to get whatever the third zombie is. So that's 3 1/1s for, you know, Unending Swarm. So, tip, that's actually quite bad. If you have 2 Lingering Zombies dead, you could fill your board with 6 1/1s. Some of the 1/1s will be sticky, and that's quite bad. You know what the good use of Unending Swarm is? It's not in this place that they tried to sneak in, where it's like, oh yeah, you build a low-cost zombie deck, undead deck, and then you play Unending Swarm. The Unending Swarm is actually the Rushing Whelp from Scales of Onyxia. That's right, those cards cost 2 or less, and they do have Rush on them. Did you think Scales of Onyxia was a good card? Well, now you can play Scales of Onyxia again. Now, whether or not the Druids will actually run 2 copies of Unending Swarm, I think that's pretty debatable, because the card will be useless if you don't play Scales of Onyxia first. Maybe you run 1 copy of Unending Swarm in it. And of course, your Denathrius just gets bigger as he eats even more whelps. Seems like a solid option for those decks. And here's the other 5 cards for Druid. We got the Armor package. So before we show all of these cards individually, it's really important to show the payoff cards because otherwise the cards look terrible. Crypt Keeper, 8 mana 4/6 undead with taunt, costs 1 less for each armor you have. So potentially a 0 mana 4/6 taunt. Wow. You know what coincidentally gives 8 armor, but also is an armor lover himself? Anubricon, 8 mana 7/7 undead, the legendary battlecry, gain 8 armor, which can be used to cast Crypt Keeper, by the way. This turn, your minions cost armor instead of mana. First thing to keep in note for Anubricon, as long as you're actually casting minions this turn, which cost the full 8, then this is a 0 mana 7/7 as long as you have spent 8. So this allows for some serious swing turns. You play your Anubricon, you play Crypt Keeper, and then you start playing the minions. Maybe one of the minions is Underking. You spend your 7 armor on this, so you have 1 armor left. Underking, 7 mana 6/6 undead with Rush, Battlecry, and Death Rattle, gain 6 armor. So you spent armor to play this, and then you gain armor when this comes into play. Maybe you even net some armor when this thing dies, sending it at another minion. Wow value. Other cards that gain you armor so that you can use more Anubricon, I guess? Chitinous Plating, 2 mana, gain 4 armor. At the start of your next turn, gain 4 more. This card, actually, I'm being told, might be strong enough to play in Ramp Druid, because 2 mana, just gain 8 armor might be enough. It is already running Earthen Power after a while, which generally gains you a lot of armor is the main purpose of that spell. So now you have Chitinous Plating, which you can just play as early as turn 2. And then you have what may look like the weirdest kind of out of place card I've seen in quite some time. Beetlemancy. 5 mana, choose 1, gain 12 armor, or summon 2/3/3 beetles with taunt. Is this 2019? I see Hidden Oasis in here, and that was an old card. Yeah, this card is just no good. No good at all. Where things really come down to is, 1, if Beetlemancy is terrible and you never plan to actually gain 12 armor so you can ramp out Crypt Keeper on turn 5 when you play your Beetlemancy to gain 12 armor, and then you play Crypt Keeper, is there actually enough payoff to play the Crypt Keeper? Maybe if you play Chitinous Plating on 2 and then not lose the armor, and then on 3 you can play Crypt Keeper for free. Wow, but that doesn't seem like a very realistic plan. So yeah, it just doesn't seem like you'll gain the armor early enough for Crypt Keeper to be cheating by a significant amount. It would seem almost like you're supposed to play Crypt Keeper on the same turn you play Anubricon, but that's a really specific turn to play it. Similarly, Underking doesn't really have that many impressive applications if you don't care that much about the armor. It's like a 7 mana 6/6 rush, whatever. But thankfully, Anubricon might be good enough to just be played, even without those cards, because it is a 0 mana 7/7 at 8 mana, at worst. Now, where Anubricon perhaps could get his chance to shine is you play your Celestial Alignment, and then you play Anubricon, and then you can play 8 minions for 1 mana apiece, 1 armor apiece. So much power, but is it practical? Let's look at the Mage cards. The Mage theme here is Arcane Bolt. We've seen this already. It's the 1 mana, deal 2, Arcane, and Mana Thirst if you have 8 mana. So as a Mage, you pretty much need to be on turn 8. It deals 3 instead. So that's a solid card, but why run Arcane Bolt when you can just generate Arcane Bolt? With Arcane Worm, 1 mana 1/2, Battlecry, add an Arcane Bolt to your hand. Generally a 1 mana 1/2 that adds a decent card to your hand is a pretty good card. So I could certainly see Arcane Worm being run. Magister's Apprentice, 2 mana 3/2, your arcane spells cost 1 less. It's a nod to the old Sorcerer's Apprentice, which was so overpowered that it had to get nerfed to 4 mana. Now they're like, oh, okay, if we limit it to just arcane spells, I think it can work. Interesting. This does combo with the theme of this package, which is cast a bunch of arcane bolts. You reduce the arcane spell cost of the arcane bolt from 1 to 0. Arc Splitter, 3 mana 3/2, Death Rattle, add 2 arcane bolts to your hand. So if you think Arcane Bolt is as good as a card, this is similar to Arcane Intellect, except you always get the card you're looking for, and you get a 3/2 with it. That's pretty good. You can have 8 Arcane Bolts with simply, just not tutoring for extra stuff, discovering stuff out of the game, just by running the standard stuff. And 8 Arcane Bolts is 24 damage. But with Vexalius, 5 mana 3/5 elemental, your arcane spells cast twice. There is a very easy to see Vexalius endgame combo where you just play Vexalius and then you arcane bolt, 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 bolt. The bolts each do 3 damage apiece. Vexalius makes them cast twice, double damage. So it's 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 30 damage. This is Hearthstone in 2022, so 30 damage might not cut the job anymore. So perhaps you want to throw in the Guild Trader for +2 spell damage, and you want to reduce the cost of your arcane bolts from 1 to 0. That can be done with Magister's Apprentice, or it can be done with Siphon Mana. I actually think the Siphon Mana might make the Magister's Apprentice not necessary. When your arcane bolt plus Guild Trader plus double from looking at the card, it's actually Vexalius, not Vexalius. It makes your arcane bolt deal 3 + 2 damage, so that's 5, and then you double that, so it's 10. Then with just 4 arcane bolts and Vexalius, and having your arcane bolts get reduced from 1 to 0 mana, on 9 mana you can go Vexalius, Guild Trader, bolt, 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 and that's 40 damage. Seems actually pretty reasonable. If you only have to cast 4 of them, then it seems like you might not need to run Arcane Bolt, the original card, and 2 Arc Splitters and 2 Arcane Worms will do. It's possible this isn't intended, like, it can be used to one-turn kill your opponent, but this is flexible enough that you could use this as a control element as well. Because these are value generation cards, the cards can be used for minion removal. Maybe you put this into Hero Power Mage, that's a solid foundation. Then the games that you don't need to stay alive, you save them for the combo at the end. For the games that you do need to stay alive, use the Arcane Bolts to live longer, and then you use the Hero Power to finish out the game. Now, over on the other side of Mage, we've got Generate Random Spell Mage! Woo! Prismatic Elemental, 2 mana 1/3 Elemental. Battlecry, discover a spell from any class. It costs 1 less. So, considering the 1 mana discount on the spell, this card is basically a 1 mana 1/3 discover a spell, which is kind of like draw a card. That's actually really strong independently. Additionally, your Hero Varden card replays, one of each spell school. So you could discover a different from Fire, Frost, and Arcane spell, and then Varden can double up. But yeah, I actually think Prismatic Elemental has a lot of possibilities here. Vast Wisdom, 3 mana, discover 2 spells that cost 3 or less, swap their costs. So it is actually a benefit to swap the costs of 2 spells, because you can cast the really strong card, which is potentially like you discover a 1 and a 3 cost. You can, for 1 mana, cast the 3 mana spell and get like the 3 mana effect, all for only 1 mana. And that's a really strong turn. And yeah, the 3 mana turn where you have to cast the 1 mana spell effect, it's not very good, but as the saying goes, I'd gladly pay you Tuesday for a burger today. Which is, when you're casting 3 mana spell for 1 mana, that's a discount now, and you pay for it later with the more expensive spell for a less powerful effect later, but, good effect now. Unfortunately, this card isn't necessarily better than Arcane Intellect because the spells you get are not guaranteed to be good in any way. But, did you think that was a good idea? Where you discover a 1 mana spell and a 3 mana spell and you swap the cost? Well, now you've got this 3 mana spell out there with this puny 1 mana effect, and that's terrible. But wait till you slam down Energy Shaper. 4 mana 3/5, Battlecry, transform all spells in your hand into ones that cost 2 more. They keep their original cost. Then you transform your terrible 3 mana 1 mana spell effect into a 5-mana spell effect, which only costs 3 mana. Yeah, this is pretty random. It's probably not practically going to be done. It's a funny pack filler. But if you want the funniest pack filler, boy, have I got the card for you. Grand Magister Romith is how we're going to conclude this review. 9 mana, 5/7, Battlecry, recast each spell you've cast this game that didn't start in your deck. This is like Yogg! Except, good news, you only cast the ones that are good even when randomly cast. You don't want to get the ones that, you know, target something because you could target yourself. So I don't think this fits into the Arcane Bolt generation deck, because when you play it, you're just going to be flinging Arcane Bolts at random targets. That's no good. Well, in actuality, this is big meme. There's no way you can curate the exact spells that you're going to cast that don't start from your deck. That's ridiculous. It'll never work. In general, this spell shenaniganry is not a good package for Mage, but the Prismatic Elemental could be a pretty solid card for the Varden Mage. Hero Power Mage, late game control Mage. It's just a very solid card. So there you have Druid and Mage in their entirety. This is coming out at you from Thanksgiving. We got no card reveals today, taking a break for Thanksgiving. But November 25th, it's gonna be my Rogue reveal. With that Rogue reveal, you're gonna see a brand new way to play Rogue! Don't miss it!